everyone, and welcome to the Hairenik Newscast. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan made an urgent trip to Iran this week. He went to offer condolences for the death of Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, who was killed in a helicopter crash over the weekend. Pashinyan's visit comes at a time of turmoil in Armenia, with growing public opposition to his appeasement policies and a consolidating opposition movement to his rule. Let's start our program with a guest from Tehran. Ehsan Movahedian is an academic and expert on the Caucasus region. He advises the joint Iran-Armenia Economic Commission and is a major proponent of Armenia-Iran relations. Ehsan, welcome to the program. Let's get right into it. So Prime Minister of Armenia Nikol Pashinyan was just in Tehran to pay his respects for the death of President Raisi, Foreign Minister Abdullahian, and their companions. How significant is it that Pashinyan went personally to Tehran?
Hello, everybody that watching this show. I think it was so important that Pashinyan personally traveled to Iran to participate in the cemetery ceremony. It shows that how much this relation between Iran and Armenia is important. From Armenian side, Armenia wants to show that it wants to continue its solidarity with Iran, and Armenian relations with Europeans, with NATO, with other countries that Iran is so sensitive about them has nothing to do with Armenian relation with Iran, and Armenia want to improve its relations with Iran. And also Armenia wants to, the Armenian government wants to show to Iranian side that we are the one that wants to expand our relation with Iran. And since the oppositions in recent days, they want to increase their connections and relation with Iran. I think that Armenian Prime Minister somehow is worried about the consequences of this. Iranian side, it is also important because Iran wants to keep its borders with Armenia. Iran wants to expand its economic security, political relation with Armenia, because Iran sees Armenia as a way for access to Caucasus, to Central Asia. So both sides have mutual interest to increase their relation together. And I have to, mention what Iranian Supreme Leader said during this meeting.
Yes, please tell us what were the most important points that the Supreme Leader said.
Yeah, I want to say that the most important thing is that Iranian Supreme Leader called this relation as a strategy. It means that we have long-standing objective that we want to reach in the field of economy, security, politics, culture, etc. The other point is that Iranian Supreme Leader said that we have to overcome and we have to, encounter some elements that who disagree with our expanding relations. And the third point that Ayatollah Khamenei stressed that was that Ayatollah Raisi, the late Iranian president, was so worried about the tensions in borders, and he closely was watching and monitoring the developments in Armenian and Republic of Azerbaijan, borders. And through this, Ayatollah Khamenei wanted to stress that how much we care about keeping our borders with Armenia safe. And I think that he wanted to say to Pashinyan that you must be also worried about these borders and you must pay attention to this and to understand that how much it is important for us.
And indeed, the late Foreign Minister Abdullahian was in, Syunik. He was the one who inaugurated the consulate in Kapan, which is the administrative capital of Armenia's southern province of Syunik. He was, this is, I believe, his last trip to Armenia. And so it was a very significant event. It was the first, I believe, ever foreign consulate in Syunik province. Can you talk to me especially from your perspective as somebody who is advising the Joint Economic Commission between Iran and Armenia, what are the ongoing priorities of Iran in Armenia, and specifically in this border province and, regarding economics and transport?
Right now, our main economic project is the reconstruction and improving the transit road between Iran and Armenia. And it was supposed that late Iranian President had traveled to Munich to start the construction operation of this road. But
just one moment. So President Raisi was meant to travel to southern Armenia for an inauguration of sorts,
yes.
for the North-South Highway.
It was supposed for him to do that, but I don't know what's going to happen. But it is a certain program of Iran that do this. But right now, we have to reschedule this. So this is the main priority of Iran. The other priorities is including the, expansion of Iranian-Armenian economic relation. For example, Iran is going to be involved in construction, operations. In the field of culture and education, you see that Iran is going to expand its educational relations with Armenia. Farsi education is underway in different schools. Iran also is expanding its relations with different universities in Armenia, and relations in the field of art, in the field of sport, and so on is underway. In the field of security, you see that Iran all the time stressed the importance of keeping borders with Armenia. So if the government of Armenia want to welcome this kind of cooperation, Iran is ready, but I'm not sure that whether NATO and some Western countries let Armenia to expand its security and military cooperation with Iran.
If I could just interrupt you for a moment, that is something that I believe our audience would be very curious about. We hear different things that, Iran wants closer relations in the military sphere with Armenia. I remember when Azeri forces actually entered the Goris Kapan section of the highway in 2021 after the war. I understood that Iran was interested to help Armenia protect its sovereignty, but it was actually the Armenian government that said, no, that road is for Azerbaijan. Can you tell me about what is on offer from Iran to Armenia in the security sphere? How much can you tell us about that?
I know that Iran is ready to start a joint military maneuver with Armenian borders. Iran is ready to sell weapons that Armenia needs, but it's up to Armenian government and Armenian military officials to accept this kind of cooperation or doesn't accept. We can give them our offers in different fields if they want to buy something, if they want to do military maneuver, if they want to be aware of Iranian achievements in this field. But we can offer them, but it's up to them to accept or not. I'm not sure that whether they have any kind of program to increase their cooperation in the field of military and security.
I believe that even, without having a joint military maneuver, the Iranian mobilization of its armed forces on the border, from northern Iran and the line of contact with Azerbaijan, I believe it was in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, but you can correct me, that also had a major impact and perhaps stopped Azerbaijan from trying to go further. Iran has been very clear in its position on Azerbaijan's desired so-called Zangezur corridor through Armenia. Can please tell me what is the timeline for Iran to have a new government, and what can we expect as far as continuity on the Armenia relations file?
After the ending of the cemetery ceremonies all around the country. From next week, we have the registration of the nominees in Interior Ministry. And we have election within a month, and after that, the new president will show up.
But I think the main question would be how much continuity can we expect in regards to Armenia-Iran relations, in regards to, you know, the policies that were being pursued by President Raisi?
You know, as I told you, first of all, I have to tell that I think that people will vote to a guy with highest similarity with Mr. Raisi, because people love him and people are looking for someone to continue the path of Raisi. And our foreign policy toward Armenia and toward Caucasus is not something that you know, presidents want to design it. This is something that designed by Iranian Supreme Leader. When Iranian Supreme Leader talk about something, it's a definite comment. Nobody can, everybody must obey it, and nobody can ignore it. So Iranian Supreme Leader said that our borders with Armenia must be respected. Nobody can cut it. Our Iranian-Armenian relation, it's more than thousands years, and Armenian in Nagorno-Karabakh must be respected, and we do care about the territorial integrity of Armenia. These are some things that nobody can ignore. So it has nothing to do with the next president. It's something that every president, from irrespective of its fictions, irrespective of political ideas, must respect.
Now, when President Raisi's helicopter went down, he was actually returning from a meeting with his counterpart from Baku, Ilham Aliyev, in Iran's far north. Can you tell us what were they meeting about, and, you know, what are Iran's big concerns in relations to the Caucasus and Republic of Azerbaijan?
You know, it was the inauguration for a start of a dam, a common dam, a joint dam between Iran and Baku. And in this, it's so interesting that during this conversation with Aliyev, Iranian president asked Baku in a diplomatic way to stop expansion of its relations with Israelis. In Iranian Azerbaijani borders, they have some military base. In our borders, there are at least 2 military airports in Fuzuli and Zangilan that Israelis use them, and we know that how much they are ready to retaliate to Baku. And it has been the record of Azerbaijan, you know, involvement in Israelis' attempt and involvement in Iran against Iranian scientific, Iranian nuclear scientists that assassinated by Israel with the help of Baku. And I don't want to, you know, go further details, but there are many people in Iran that think that we cannot see this as a simple incident. We have to think about these things. We have to see it in a wider, you know, horizon, and think about the incentives and, you know, objectives of Israelis. And so
we
right
should
now,
should we expect a full investigation of the helicopter crash then?
Yeah, a full investigation is underway, and experts are working on it, and we have to wait and see the result. And I am sure that if any government, any figures involved in this incident, they will have to pay the price, of course.
And you spoke a little bit about, you know, the Baku's fears of Iranian influence on their population. But in recent days, we've also seen kind of a flurry of articles in the media, I believe in Newsweek, Jerusalem Post, warning about Armenia-Iranian ties. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've seen and how you interpret, these concerns?
You know, Western countries want to get rid of Iran, and they want us out of Caucasus and Central Asia, because they want to be in this part of the world to endanger the national interest of Iranians, Russians, and Chinese. And they say that Iran wants to help the church and religious leaders in Armenia to destabilize Armenia. But the point is that Iran never interfere in internal affairs of countries like Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and so on. Iran consider itself as a brother that wants to help to these countries. Iran respect to the all fictions in Armenia, of course, and we think that it's up to the people of Armenia to think about what is good for them and what is bad for them. But they say that what?
I noticed, yes, that the Georgian Prime Minister was also in Tehran to pay his respects. And we should also mention that back in Yerevan, the Iranian embassy had many guests coming to pay their condolences, both from the government of Nikol Pashinyan and from the opposition, and of course from the church. Archbishop Bagrat Galstanian, who's the leader of the Tavush for the Homeland movement, went to pay his respects. Can you tell me how that is received in Iran? What does this show us about this wide spectrum of Armenian political figures, showing solidarity with Iran?
Of course, Iran is so happy that all fictions and all people with different kind of thinking want to work with us, and we see that as a positive sign that shows that everybody in Armenia understand that it's important that they have to work with Iran, and they understand that Iran is their only friend, the only friend within the neighbors of the country, and we are so happy of that. And we hope that Armenian government understand that it must improve its relation with Iran, and they have to increase it to the military and security, and they have to increase their economic relations with Iran if they want to survive Armenia. Because if we see that the countries like Turkey and like Azerbaijan, NATO and Israelis, they want to take Caesar of Syunik, and they want to establish the so-called Zangezur corridor. They never pay attention, and they don't care about territorial integrity of Armenia. The only thing that is important for Western countries is that to complete take Caesar of the Syunik region, and they want to control the whole region to establish somehow a Turk NATO, to endanger the national interest of Iran, Russia, and China, and they don't care about the destiny and fate of Armenian people. So Armenians must understand that and work with Iran more closely to counterattack this kind of aggressive goals.
Unfortunately, in Armenia, in recent weeks, we've seen the start of kind of a media campaign against Iran coming from government-affiliated media channels. One of the claims they make is that Iran is actually stopping the shipment of weapons from India. Can you comment on this? Is there any credence to this rumor?
I'm not, I have no information about that, but as far as I know, is that Iran never tried to stop the, empowerment of Armenia in the field of security, in the field of economy, in the field of, political matters. I have no information about this special topic, but I'm sure that Iran is not going to do anything that decrease the security of Armenia.
Understood. And should there be, say, tomorrow, the Armenian government decides to hold joint military exercises with Iran. What kind of reaction do you think would come from Azerbaijan, from Turkey, and how would it contribute to regional security?
If your government agree to start a joint military maneuver with Iran, I'm sure that Baku and Turkey stop any kind of aggression against Armenia. And I'm sure that they stop their rhetoric about so-called Western Azerbaijan. You know that they call the whole Armenia as the Western Azerbaijan. They right now they think that the government of Armenia, is not going to expand its relation to the field of security with Iran. But I'm sure that if Armenia succeeded to do this, it is going to guarantee its territorial integrity and its security, and it's very good for Armenia because when you are sure about your territorial integrity and security, you can start different kind of economic project in your country. I know that your government tried to start some economic project, next to the borders, but Azerbaijan government and Azerbaijan military attacked this project, and your government, stopped that project. So it is so good for you and for us, and by doing this, and especially with starting economic, projects in Syunik, the people who are living there will be eager to stay in the Syunik because they have hope to the future and they have some jobs to do. Their life expectancy will increase, and I'm sure that I hope that your government understand these points and increase its cooperation with Iranian government.
Thank you so much, Ehsan, for your time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure to talk to you and to your audience.
Now, let's go to our correspondent in Yerevan to talk about developments back in the homeland. Nare, welcome. Nare,
thank you, Alison.
Nare, Pashinyan, as soon as he returned back to Armenia, he went into domestic politics. What was his message to the National Assembly on Wednesday?
Essentially, his message was that the Armenian Apostolic Church is an agent of influence and that he will resolve this issue, the issue of the popular uprising, in 2-3 months. And he even compared himself to 4th century Armenian King Bab, who was allegedly, according to some historians, poisoned by the church. And he proclaimed that King Bab will not be poisoned again. We will not face the Armenian statehood will not face extinction again. Essentially comparing himself to King Bab and equating himself with the Armenian statehood.
I see. So tell me, what is going on the ground? I believe he was talking also in his speech to the National Assembly about constitutional changes. What are the updates on the ground in Armenia?
Yes, he mentioned once again the need for a new constitution, which the Azerbaijani side, Ilham Aliyev, also likewise emphasizes. In general, if you pay attention, you can see that Pashinyan's rhetoric and Aliyev's rhetoric very often mirror each other. For example, this artificial dichotomy that they create between historical Armenia, which I guess for them also includes the Artsakh Republic, and real Armenia, which is only possible according to the Soviet Armenian administrative borders.
I see. I believe there was another speech by the National Assembly member Hairenik Danilyan, who is from Tavush and has been at the forefront of this movement we've seen, this popular movement. What did Hairenik have to say about what's going on back in his home province?
Hairenik mentioned that the reason why oppositional MPs and journalists are now forbidden from visiting Iran is so that the villagers will be essentially blackmailed and terrorized one-on-one by various governmental workers. And for example, there have been threats that if they don't accept compensation for their houses now, then they will not be offered any compensation later. And we have seen
so I'm sorry, just compensation, meaning that if they're willing to relocate and leave their homes, which even though these homes have perhaps are on the Armenian side, but still, under Azeri threat, that they could be somehow reimbursed. Is that correct?
I believe this one is referring to the houses that are directly going to be under Azerbaijani control. So it's not the ones that are going to be in the vicinity of Azerbaijani military. These ones he has offered to have trees between the villagers and the Azeri military force, and various just decorative solutions to these issues.
And Hairenik, as I understand, he was saying that the people in his home province, in this village, are saying that they are facing coercion. Is that correct?
Yes, this is correct. They have been threatened with, oh, if you don't go through with this process, then your relatives will be fired, for example. And we can see in this video that the police are actually saving this property to then safely transfer to the Azerbaijani side.
And this certainly has so many echoes of what we saw in Artsakh when, for example, after November 9th, Karvajar was handed over. We saw images of people who had, set their houses on fire in protest of being forced to hand it over, and then again, of course, in the Berdzor corridor, there were threats, against the village of Aghavno and other people living on the corridor that, if they did any damage to their homes before they were handed over to Azerbaijan, then they would not receive any compensation. So now we're seeing this repeated in Armenia. So it's very. It seems the government is almost treating these handovers to Azerbaijan as if it's an eminent domain, and when in fact people are losing their homes to a country that is blatantly opposed to Armenia even existing as a state. We've also seen, in addition to this, a discourse that's going on in Armenia. We've seen a lot of external interference. I want to bring up an article that appeared in the Turkish newspaper Super Haber, which is owned by a cousin of Erdogan, and they published an article claiming that Archbishop Bagrat Galstanian, who's been leading this opposition movement, will be assassinated, and that the blame will be placed on Turkey and Azerbaijan. I think we should, also take note of that, but I understand we're also seeing, threats from within Armenia. So I wonder if there is something to this.
Yes, we saw the MP Khachatur Sukasyan, which is effectively one of the oldest oligarchs of independent Armenia from the times of Ter-Petrosyan's presidency. And he said that as the church is an agent of external influence, the leaders may be arrested or may suddenly die. So may die, essentially. So this is another very implicit threat to deal with this movement with the methods of a mafia.
And I understand that, looking forward, there's a major rally planned on Sunday of this Tavush for the Homeland movement. And yet, we still see, we see the government of Nikol Pashinyan, including the Speaker of Parliament, claiming that, nothing has changed, the people are still with them. I believe you, before we spoke, mentioned what Alan Simonian said and how a Tavush villager responded. Can you tell our audience about that?
Well, Alan Simonian claimed that in 2026 elections, the villagers of Girans will no doubt again choose civil contract. That civil contract will no doubt win. And the inhabitant of the village, Gohar Vartanyan, responded to that, saying that she herself is not going to vote for civil contract. She said, "It appears like you've made that decision for me instead of me already." And then she said, but the main question is if there are going to be people still living in the village of Girans in 2026.
Armenian people.
Yes, important.
Thank you so much, Nari, for your time, and we will certainly stay on top of this story. Let's talk next week. That was our show, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, and wherever you get your news. Thank you so much.